Next on the news, new pipe bombs found today targeting former Vice President Joe Biden and actor Robert De Niro. A nationwide hunt is underway to catch the sender.
I guess you might call it a gift, a blessing, and an unassuming journey.
She lived through sexual abuse, and now she's playing a critical role in helping other survivors. Sister Ave Clark sharing her story with Currents News. A fire ripping through a Massachusetts church, everything destroyed except for one holy object. Plus, first dogs were cloned, and now China says humans may be next. A top Catholic theologian joins us to speak about a potential moral crisis. That and more right now. More packages containing explosives sent to more high-profile people. X-rays showing the potential danger inside. Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Faublas. It's day 2 of an unfolding nightmare, and still no sign of who's sending the packages. 2 new targets on the receiving end, Robert De Niro in New York and former Vice President Joe Biden in Delaware. So far, all the packages have gone to prominent Democrats, the Obamas, the Clintons, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, Eric Holder, George Soros, and John Brennan, care of CNN. The White House says it's providing whatever resources are necessary to solve this case. Karen Kaifa has the latest.
A nationwide manhunt is underway to track down who is responsible for sending several pipe bombs over the last few days. Early Thursday, a suspicious device was recovered in New York addressed to actor Robert De Niro, and authorities discovered 2 packages like the others in Delaware addressed to former Vice President Joe Biden. The devices recovered are similar to those sent this week to several prominent Democrats, including former President Barack Obama and Bill and Hillary Clinton, as well as to former CIA Director John Brennan at CNN's office at the Time Warner Center building in New York, which prompted an evacuation.
FBI, ATF are working on this, and I want to thank all of our law enforcement officers in dealing with explosive devices.
The FBI says it's possible more devices could have been sent to additional locations. Several of the targets have been vocal critics of the current administration.
Someone's trying, or some group of people are trying to terrorize us, trying to get us to lose faith in our government, in our institutions, in our society. We have to respond with consistency and not allowing ourselves to be undermined.
The FBI's Counterterrorism Division is leading the investigation, and President Trump has promised to provide whatever federal resources are necessary. In New York, Karen Kaifa, Currents News.
Mayor Bill de Blasio appeared on morning TV today.
I don't know if they're in New York City. I believe there is someone who, by definition, is a serial bomber, yes, and a terrorist. Person or people, foreign or domestic, we don't know yet, and we certainly don't know if they're here or elsewhere in the country. Clearly, there's a pattern. It does appear to be very consistent. Each of these packages coming from the exact same person or people, the exact same style, the exact same materials.
De Blasio added New Yorkers will not be intimidated by the deadly devices. The bomb scares are creating lots of tension. Many high-profile people are releasing statements, including the president, who tweeted, "A very big part of the anger we see today in our society is caused by the purposely false and inaccurate reporting of the mainstream media that I refer to as fake news. It has gotten so bad and hateful that it is beyond description. Mainstream media must clean up its act fast." CNN's New York office received one of the packages yesterday. The head of the channel, Jeff Zucker, is blasting the president for his criticism. There is a total and complete lack of understanding at the White House about the seriousness of their continued attacks on the media. The president, and especially the White House press secretary, should understand their words matter. Thus far, they have shown no comprehension of that. Sister Ave Clark has lived through sexual abuse, and now she's playing an important role in helping other survivors. Currents News' Tim Harfman is here with more of this nun's courageous story. Tim.
She has devoted her life to God's people, a Dominican nun who is helping Catholics draw closer to Christ. Supporting abuse survivors struggling to find their way home to the church is a special part of her ministry.
They smiled and told me their names.
Sister Ave Clark is all about spreading love and healing through prayer.
I guess you might call it a gift, a blessing, and an unassuming journey.
That's why she founded the Heart to Heart ministry 25 years ago. Based out of her residence in Bayside, Queens, the Dominican nun leads prayer groups like this one from her local parish. But a big part of her ministry is meeting one-on-one with victims of sex abuse. Sister Ave says she understands their pain because she, too, is a survivor.
At the end, we hug each other like we've known each other all our life because you cared. You stayed with the pain they had, but you offered them joy and hope.
But she says although they have turned away from the church, they want to find Christ.
I think they're disappointed. And a lot of people just have this belief and hope that transparency, opening our heart as a church community and saying things did go wrong, but there's a better way.
No matter what worshipers need healing from, Sister Ave helps about 40 people per week and even receives phone calls from across the country.
A truck driver calls me, and one day he said, "Hey, sister, everybody wants to say hello," and I hear all these men yelling, "Hey, hi, how are you?" And he said, "That's all the people, sister, that go across the United States with me. We're all yelling, there's a nun praying for us."
Members of her church's prayer group say Sister Ave has changed their lives.
She taught me a lot about my religion, and she has such compassion, and I find her to be a very special individual.
I would be with her every day because I just sense that she's like Jesus on earth.
Please don't take my sunshine away.
For her work in the church, Sister Ave will receive the highest honor from her religious order at a special event next week.
I feel it's not just about me, it's about all the people that I have met. The heart-to-heart connection that you have with faith, with hope, and with charity.
Sister Ave also leads retreats ranging from schools to rosary societies to Catholics who are receiving one of their sacraments. They can call 718-428-2471. You can also reach Sister through her website, anextratablespoonoflove.blogspot.com.
Oh, great story. Thank you so much, Tim. A judge in El Salvador is ordering the arrest of the man accused of murdering new saint Oscar Romero. Romero was recently canonized by Pope Francis. National authorities are looking for the suspect, former military captain Alvaro Rafael Saravia. Authorities believe they now have enough evidence to charge him. Pope Francis removed Bishop Martin Hawley from the Diocese of Memphis. Vatican spokesman Greg Burke says the decision is due to Bishop Martin's management of the diocese and has nothing to do with abuse. Archbishop Joseph Kurtz of Louisville will temporarily run the diocese. Some controversy tonight surrounding that month-long summit about young people. One of the bishops attending the Synod at the Vatican argues that there's not enough listening or hearing going on. Melissa Butts reports.
For the past 3 weeks, the Synod Fathers have been discussing youth, even more specifically, youth spirituality, youth ministry, and bishops' and priests' role in helping young people.
The first element which we really spoke of so much is that we have to be ready to listen to young people, and that is listen but also hear. That means not only say I heard you, but say I heard you and now I want to hear you and I want to do what you told me. See, the whole thing is a very active way of being in the midst of youth.
Listening has been the hot Synod word this year. Yet amidst all the discussions with bishops and youth, he said there's one big piece missing.
What I'm missing in the text now, that is clarity about the conditions to listen. You can only listen to the people if you're with them, not on the telephone, not on the video, but you have to be with them. The fact of listening is there, many times even, and listening to each other and listening to the young people. But how do you do that, and what are the basic conditions for it? The basic condition is you have to be there.
The Bishop of Ghent assures that he tries to spend as much time as possible with the youth in his diocese, learning from them. In that way, he believes the final letter to young people should be written in a different way than it's always been done. In Rome, Melissa Butts, Currents News.
Tonight, the Archbishop of Philadelphia, Charles Chaput, is saying the Synod missed an important opportunity. The Archbishop believes the gathering of the world's bishops included some who were resistant to confronting the clerical sex abuse scandal. Archbishop Chaput is disappointed that the Synod didn't apologize to people for the abuse scandals. That migrant caravan heading north to America could be facing its biggest obstacle yet. Sickness, fear, and harassment in Mexico are whittling away the number of people down to about 4,000. The marchers are also complaining of exhaustion. President Trump is deploying at least 800 more U.S. troops to the Mexico border to block the caravan from crossing over. The ruling royals in Saudi Arabia are now publicly admitting the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi was murder.
It's not a death, it's a murder. We admit it, we're dealing with it. As such, we will be transparent.
That was the Saudi energy minister who added that kingdom's reputation has been damaged by the crime. North and South Korea have removed all firearms and ammunition from their shared space in the DMZ. In this zone, soldiers from the North and South had stood face to face with guns in hand, ready to attack if necessary. The move is seen as highly symbolic for the Korean peninsula as Moon Jae-in and Kim Jong-un look to reduce tensions between both nations. Both Korean demilitarized zone had been called the most dangerous spot on Earth. There's a lot more news headed your way. The historic church was reduced to ashes, but something special survived, helping the congregation to see through the tears. It would change life on Earth, man playing God by cloning human beings. I'll dig into the huge ethical issues with a top theologian. Hundreds of Catholic students from Brooklyn and Queens rally to promote the faith. And do you have a story idea, something happening in your parish we should know about? We want to hear from you. Keep this email handy, newstips@thesalesmedia.org. We will be right back. Rising from the ashes, a painting of Christ surviving a massive church fire. A congregation is devastated after huge flames destroyed their church. The blaze engulfed the building, leaving construction crews no choice but to tear down the Baptist church that was over 100 years old. The damage is done, but the community finds hope after one sacred image miraculously survives those flames. This steeple is being removed from the First Baptist Church in Wakefield because of fears it may collapse. The iconic symbol was the heart of downtown Massachusetts.
This just stabs right to the heart of this community.
A massive fire, probably sparked by a lightning strike, gutted the 150-year-old church. Firefighters struggled to reach the hellish inferno that had made its way towards the 180-foot-tall spire. It was nearly impossible to extinguish those flames. The congregation's one saving grace, an image of Christ hung just inside the church's front doors, survived the 7-alarm fire unscathed. Still, the pain of loss is deep. Donna Burns, who's been the church's music director for 35 years, finds it hard to witness the devastation of a place she calls home.
A very special place in my heart, musically, religiously. It's just a loss. It's like a death in the family.
Interim pastor Reverend Norman Bendroth says the church is the cradle of many stories and memories.
It's not the building, of course, but it's the container of all these sacred memories. You know, this is where I was baptized or I married my daughter.
It's also a building that contained historic records, paintings, a decades-old organ, things difficult to replace.
Total sadness. Total sadness. You can't even put it into words.
However, a picture miraculously unscathed speaks 1,000 words, and parishioners pray just like Christ's resurrection, their church will rise again.
It's comforting to me that this was just a building and that we are just going to move forward.
And Reverend Bendroth says the congregation will immediately discuss temporary places to worship. The Little Sisters of the Poor are back in court. The government is trying to take away a federal regulation that exempts the nuns from the contraception mandate. The sisters were part of a lawsuit that created the exemption for religious organizations. A decision on the appeal is expected sometime next year. Chinese scientists have cloned several dogs, and they say humans could be next. China's media is reporting that a 12-year-old Schnauzer is the latest pup to be cloned. The process involves taking skin samples from the dog and cloning the cells. Experts have replicated 20 different breeds of dogs since March of this year. With scientists making great strides in cloning, some think it's only a matter of time until the world begins genetically modifying humans. And that's when questions of morality arise. Here to answer some of those questions is Monsignor Michael Curran, a professor of moral theology at St. Joseph's Seminary in Dunwoody. He joins us now. Monsignor, I can't think of a better person to have this discussion with.
No, happy to be here, Liz.
Thank you so much. From a Catholic perspective, let's talk first about the dangers with cloning anything, but especially humans. What are they?
Sure, the danger with cloning anything, of course, would start off with animals, which is where a lot of the data is coming from. That's one thing, you know, in terms of the progress of science, as long as you respect, obviously, the life of God's creatures and don't cause undue harm. But when you come to the prospect of doing it from human beings, on human beings, then we run into all kinds of moral objections that really are assaults on the dignity of the human person. You know, we speak of procreation, not simply reproduction. So the personal act of man and woman, husband and wife, an act of love, an act of their own choice, an act that is in total congruity with their marriage vows, that's the proper setting for the procreation of another human person. And to cloning, which is really involves the manipulation of genetic material without any personal investment of the person, that's where we run into really moral objections.
Investment, that moral fiber, and that's just one aspect of this particular topic, right? What about critics that are accusing scientists of playing God? Do you agree with that?
It's possible in some cases that the idea of maybe the total progress at all costs of technology, the failure to ask what should we do instead of not what can we do, you know, whether there's a difference between those interventions that are therapeutic and do not involve the manipulation of persons, as opposed to something just to see what we can do. Can we produce, as it were, something that resembles a human being?
I want to talk more about that, Monsignor, in the time that we have left, because as you mentioned just very briefly in a couple of your answers, some experts cite that the medical benefits to these genetic modifications, eradicating certain kinds of cancer strands. Others say they can make human egg cells and that could help infertile couples. But how does all of that fit in with the Church's pro-life teachings at the very basic foundation of it?
Well, we would, as the Church, support anything that fosters the well-being of human beings, that is, you know, pro-life, respecting the full dignity of the human person, and the human person as an end, as the Church beautifully says. The human being is the only creature that God created as an end in him or herself. So manipulating people or manipulating their genetic material such as to make them a means to an end, even if it benefits another person. We don't use people in that regard. The idea of harvesting organs from another person or cloning for that purpose would be to use somebody as a means to an end, and really is an assault on human dignity, and that, you know, we're just made for better than that.
We're going to have to leave it there appropriately. So thank you so, Monsignor Curran, for helping us unravel such a difficult topic. It's always good talking with you.
Always great to be here, Liz. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
A new study says tall people have a greater chance of getting cancer. Researchers at the University of California say tall people have more cells that could mutate and lead to cancer. A link was found in 18 of the 23 cancer types tested. Colon, kidney cancer, and lymphoma were among the types with the strongest correlation. Still to come on Currents News, Catholic students by the hundreds stage a rally in Queens. They pray and learn how to follow the path to sainthood. Some terrific people pitch in to help a young girl. She's facing tough odds, but Halloween will be special. We'll be right back. Almost 600 students from Catholic schools and academies around Brooklyn and Queens gathered for a rally today. The young people came out for a day of prayer, worship, and music at the Immaculate Conception Center in Douglaston. The goal for the event was to teach them about the path to sainthood and how to open up to different ways of prayer.
Lay that message that young people today are called to live saintly lives so they could be the saints that we're praying to, 50, 100 years from now.
The keynote address was delivered by Youth Minister Brandon Morrell, who taught the children that music is also a different way to pray and to connect with God. Meantime, a young girl facing a big challenge is getting an answer to her prayers. She has a terminal illness, but thanks to the kindness of others, she will have a magical Halloween. Charisse LeClaire has the story of how some creative Good Samaritans transformed her wheelchair into an amazing costume.
1, 2, 3.
This pink Minnie Mouse magic wheelchair almost as bright as the smile on Riley Markey's face at the reveal in Derry.
She's got her own car now.
Thanks to an Oregon-based nonprofit started by a dad who has children who use wheelchairs. His idea spreading with volunteer builders across the country like Bonnie Regan.
2 months of just working really hard, knowing that that's the outcome.
Over those 2 months, Bonnie used insulation foam and other materials to transform the chair into this. Welcome smiles for Riley, who has been through a lot in her young life.
Riley has a terminal illness called Lee's disease. It's a neurological disease.
Diagnosed when she was 13 months old, Riley, now 5, has surpassed the odds.
We could be going through the worst things with our jobs and our home and everything, but she's going through the worst thing and she could still have a smile on her face.
And not only does Riley get this very special chair from Magic Wheelchair, but her friend Silas will also be getting his very own on Saturday.
Over a week's worth of time, we asked him every day which costume he wanted to be, and he ended up picking Max from Where the Wild Things Are.
Both kids will be trick-or-treating in style.
That's awesome because it doesn't make the wheelchair like a tool. It's actually something that's kind of fun for her to do.
Oh, that was Charisse LeClaire reporting. How happy are we for Riley and Silas? They really deserve it. It was a lesson in love. An amazing story of kids in kindergarten making a very special birthday for a friend.
Happy birthday to you.
60-year-old James Anthony is hearing impaired. When he walked into the classroom, the children wished him happy birthday by sign language. They learned the skill for the occasion. James has been working for the school district for almost 30 years. Finally tonight, are you ready to break bread with me? I hope so, because tomorrow on a special episode of Breaking Bread here on Net TV, I will be cooking up something good with host Monsignor Jamie Gigantiello on the first episode of their new season. So please be sure to tune in tomorrow, Friday, October 26th at 9 o'clock. It was definitely a fun time, and that chicken was so good. That is Currents News. I'm Liz Faublas. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. I hope to see you again next time.